Hi guys, this is another podcast episode with Horsemanship from Ginny. I'm Yaz, and today we're going to be talking about why I don't think horses should retire. Now, I can almost feel people being really confused and maybe a little bit angry at the title of this podcast, but hear me out, I've got good reasons for it, I believe anyway. So yeah, I don't think any horses should be fully retiring. None of them. They should all have a job to do into their late life, whether that's ticking over in hacking or whatever they want to do. But I don't think horses should be retiring at all, regardless of injuries. If they're retiring completely and have absolutely nothing to do, they should be put down, in my opinion. Now, my opinion on what retiring a horse looks like is probably different to other people. In my opinion, a horse that is retired, that should be put down, is a horse that does absolutely nothing. They could be on retirement livery, they come in every day, they get fed, they get checked, they get looked after, there's nothing wrong with the horse, but they don't do anything. Nothing. They have no purpose in life. And in my opinion, again, this is all my opinion, so if you don't like it, that's fine. Write it in the comments. Have your opinion in the comments. I'll discuss it with people. I'm happy to. Opinions are like arseholes, everyone has them. You don't have to listen to mine, you don't even have to look at mine. It's up to yours, it's up to you. If you're interested in my opinion, listen to it. When I say horses shouldn't retire, I don't necessarily mean they should be ridden into the ground until the day they die. That's not what I mean by that. When I say horses shouldn't retire, I think more old horses should have a place in raising young horses, raising kids around horses, and they should be given a job within a herd as such, if that makes sense. Maybe hacking out as well to keep them ticking over, but obviously that depends on why they stopped working, as to whether they can continue to do a little bit of ridden work. So this video, it sounds like me talking about old horses, but it's actually largely going to be talking about young horses and how they should be raised. In my opinion, horses should be raised by horses. We should not be leaving foals with their mums and a few maybe other brood mares with other foals to raise one another, because that is not how horses are designed to live and designed to grow up and socialise. It doesn't work, and it creates a lot of stress throughout the horses, especially the mothers. I feel so sorry for brood mares, especially brood mares that are on a yard, maybe they're the only one with a foal. Those poor mares having to put up with a youngster, a young foal with them for 6 months, a year and a half, depends on how long people wait until they wean the horses. Those mares must be under so much stress, and they might not show it, but they will be under a lot of stress. You can think of it as a mother. There's nothing worse than as people, as parents, than not being able to get away from your kids ever. And these mares are often, they're 24/7 with their foals. They've got no option to get away from them. And the way they should be given a break from those horses is by putting them into proper herds. Not just with other brood mares, with other foals, because that can cause problems in the way they're being raised. Mares don't particularly like it when other mares sometimes tell the youngsters off, and it's not a well-rounded raising for these horses. In my opinion, the best way horses are raised are when you go to the moors. You've got your Dartmoors, your New Forest, your Welsh ponies, your Shetlands. They're out in big herds, not necessarily big herds, but natural herds. You've got a stallion, you've got a few mares, you've got maybe a few yearlings, foals, the lot. You've got the whole progression of the horses in those herds. You've got young horses, old horses. Obviously, they don't live as long when out in the wild. They don't live to the same ages, I don't think. But in my opinion, there is nothing better than older horses raising young horses. And if people don't want to put old retired horses out with their brood mares and stuff like that, then they should put them out with yearlings. This is a bigger issue than brood mares with their foals being stuck with them 24/7, is they should be putting yearlings and weanlings in with older horses. They shouldn't be putting them in with other yearlings. There is nothing worse for young horses than to be raised by other young horses. You've got a field of horses that have no knowledge about the world, and say, for example, you've got 2 weanlings. You've weaned your young horse. Often done in professional yards is they will buy another weanling to put with that youngster that they've just weaned into a field for them to be together and them to go through it all together. There is nothing in that scenario to help regulate those youngsters and bring them down from the stress of having their mums taken away. They've got no adult horses to get any hint of how they should react. They've got no comfort in life other than 2 horses that are scared and stressed out about the situation they're in. Without fail, all the horses I have worked with have been quote-unquote well-bred homebreds or homebreds. No, they might not be well-bred, but they're homebreds and they've been raised by people and other young horses. They've been taken away from their mum, and then those horses are nothing but a fucking nightmare. And it's not that I don't like them, it's not their fault. They are hard to handle, and the reason I get called in to help them is because they've got no ability and they've got no capabilities to self-regulate their own stress, and that's because they haven't been with adult horses through their growing up years. Weanlings and yearlings should be in with these older, retired horses that don't have the time for them, they don't want to play all the time, they want them to fuck off and leave them alone, and they teach these horses to back off and leave them alone, and the horses then learn different personalities. They haven't just got the 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5, maybe it depends on how big the yard is and how many horses they've got weaning at one time and growing up at one time. They haven't just got a herd of young horses full of energy all the time wanting to play and satiating that need for these young horses to play. They do need young horses as well. In a herd, you don't just have one foal growing up. Very rarely would a horse have one foal to grow up with. You'll have yearlings, you'll have foals, you'll have a stallion that probably doesn't have much time for them because they're too busy doing other things, making sure the herd stays safe. You've got the old mum that maybe has a new foal at foot. She ain't got time for the yearling. That can fuck off. Sometimes they'll let them still suckle if they need to or if they want to. There's a lot that goes on in horse society as such, in a horse herd, and in the social structure of a horse herd that's really important to raising horses, and I think retired horses are a big part of that. Older horses that know a lot, haven't got the energy, maybe they're in a bit of pain, they don't want to play. And some of these horses will play with them to a point. They will set boundaries with these horses. I'll play with you as long as you stay gentle with me. And then if they want to get rough, they can fuck off, and the old gelding probably won't play with them. As they start getting too rough, they can go play with the other yearlings. If you want to play like that, go play with the other yearlings. I'm not interested in playing like that. So it teaches young horses, the difference in personalities and the difference of what you can do with one horse, what you can do with another horse. And it's the same with people. When these horses come into our society and they get broken and expected to understand what we want of them, different people are going to have different things they find acceptable. I don't mind horses rubbing their heads on me, as long as they don't send me flying or hurt me. Some horses don't like horses rubbing their heads. Some people don't like horses rubbing their heads on them at all, which is fine. There's no reason why you have to. Just because I like my horse to rub its head on me doesn't mean when you come and visit my horse it can just come up and rub its head on you. You might not like it. For example, I don't mind horses backing up into me to have the bum scratched. But if I'm up against a wall and they start squishing me into the wall, they're going to get in trouble. I don't like that. I don't feel safe. Some people will find that funny and they won't care. Personally, I don't think it's a great thing to let a horse do regardless of whether you care or not. But if you don't care and the horse doesn't completely flatten you against the wall and they're not too bad about it and you find it funny, go for it. There's no harm in it. But then someone else might come, say I hired someone to come and look after my horses for a day and my horse goes to squish them against the wall for a bum scratch. They're going to send them shooting across the field because they don't like it, they don't know the horse and they don't trust them, which is also fine. It's the horses that haven't been raised around a big enough mixture of personality of horses and big enough mixture of age ranges of horses that don't understand this because they don't have the social skills to understand this. They weren't raised understanding this. Horses have the potential to be far more socially intelligent than we allow them to be in the way that we raise horses currently. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand not everyone who breeds their horse has the option for this, but personally, in my opinion, I don't think if you don't have the option to raise a horse like this, you shouldn't be breeding in the first place, or you should be sending your horse away to be bred and have the foal raised in a situation that is healthy for them, and it's going to raise a well-rounded young horse that understands the cues of other horses when they tell them to back off, so you're not getting broken legs when something goes in a field with a mare that really won't tolerate them running up the back end of them, so they kick out. Horses shouldn't be getting into these scraps as much as we do when you introduce new horses to one another, because they should be socially adept enough to see when a horse is telling them to do one before they've flung a leg at them. When I come to work with horses, they should have the ability to understand when I tell them, no, I don't like them stood close to me, this close to me, they should back off and maintain the space until I get to know them, I feel more comfortable with them, and I feel like I can trust them. It's a fundamental understanding... Oh, I dropped my phone. It's a fundamental understanding that a lot of horses grow up without. And I think it's doing a lot of horses a huge disservice into their ability to understand people and other horses when out and about and living life normally. Seen it where I've worked on yards and you've got super friendly geldings and you've got super shitty mares or geldings that really don't like other horses, and maybe you've got to lead two of them out at the same time to take them to a field, and the friendly one will not listen to the less friendly one as it's pinning its ears, it's snapping its teeth, it's stomping its feet, and it's still consistently is just pushing and pushing, and then you as the handler that's leading them has to tell the horse off that's being aggressive, and then you also have to tell the horse off that's being over friendly. But a lot of people don't recognise that over friendliness as a problem. They just see the aggression as an issue, when in reality that horse has had its boundaries pushed and pushed and pushed, and the horse that isn't listening is just bulldozing over those boundaries that horse is trying to set until it needs to kick out and bite to tell it to do one, which if you're leading those horses is really quite dangerous. In my opinion, the one that's showing aggression is no way near as dangerous as the one that's not backing off. Not just for the person in between them, but for itself, because that horse is going to kick hell out of it until it listens. It will learn its lesson at some point. One day it will learn its lesson, and it's whether it survives the lesson or not as to whether you have a horse that now understands to leave other horses alone when they pin their ears. Now, going back to with broodmares and foals, if we turn older horses out with them, it will give these foals and these broodmares, especially the broodmares, a break from the youngsters. You have horses that will babysit. Their foals may like to go and hang out with the older geldings. Maybe the older geldings will entertain them and play with them a little bit, even the mares. And one thing that's also missing oftentimes from these group situations is a true lead mare. And what I mean by that is when you get these lead mares, a lot of people believe it's the one that's pinning its ears, it's kicking out a lot, it's squealing all the time. They think those are the horses that are in charge. More often than not, those horses aren't in charge. They are stressed and there's no one listening to them, and so they just squeal and they have to kick out all the time to get what they want. Or maybe they're horses that feel like there's a gap in the herd dynamics and they're filling it, but they haven't really got the personality to do so. Or maybe they haven't got the experience, they don't have the social understandings to be able to be a really effective lead mare. You see a mare in the field that doesn't really do a lot, it gets its space given to it, and oftentimes it will just turn its head and look in the direction of horses that are coming into its space, and they'll back out of it. The horses that are really quiet and manage to keep their space without having to be forceful about it are your true lead mares, your matriarchal mares. Those mares should be in lots of different herds. Those mares are really important for the development of young horses alongside these older geldings, older mares, retired horses that have a lot of understanding about the world. They're all really important for raising young horses. And so progressing back to when you've got your yearlings that are in big groups of yearlings and they've got no adult horses around to help them, those horses, what you want to happen when you say, they're all in a field together and a plastic bag rolls through the field, they're all freaking out. You've got all of them telling each other, you're right, that's terrifying and that's awful. If you have an older horse in there or several older horses in there that don't give a shit, they've seen the plastic bag fly off, they've seen all the yearlings go running off, maybe they've jumped initially with the yearlings, but they have the knowledge to understand what it is, what's going on, and then it's not really a problem. And so they'll go back to grazing, they might approach the thing that scared everyone to check out what it is, then go back to grazing and go, oh, it's just a plastic bag, it doesn't really matter. Whereas if you just have a group of young yearlings, you may get them, you'll get them get brave enough to go and approach it and stuff like that, but you haven't got anyone there to tell them it's okay, it's not a problem. There should be older horses around to instill that in these young horses, and where to go when it rains, how to get into the shelter when it rains, all these things, that these natural behaviours that I've seen adult horses not have. I've seen it in my field, even with just Jasper, when I had Marmaduke, Jasper and Fox in there. Although Marmaduke, they're all in separate fields, Fox and Marmaduke shared for a while until I had to separate them for food reasons, but Jasper was the only horse in my field that would, as soon as it started raining, he'd walk all the way over across the field and he'd go and park himself in shelter. The other two would just stand out in the rain, really uncomfortable, get cold, be miserable. After about a few weeks of Jasper being there, they all started to migrate to shelter to get out of the rain, out of the bad weather. And they all learnt how to deal with that better rather than getting cold, getting stressed and start running around. Or pacing as Fox does, but Marmaduke would just run around. They all started taking themselves under the trees, because there's loads of shelter in my field. They take themselves under the trees and use the shelter. They oftentimes won't use the stable for shelter. Not uncommon. Four walls around them makes it hard for them to see and hear. They can oftentimes feel under threat using field shelters and stuff like that. Whereas the trees, they've got the rain not coming on them. They can use the tree to block out behind them. There's lots of things they can do with natural shelter that makes them feel more comfortable in that weather, to actually use the shelter and not just stand out in the pissing rain getting soaking wet. And even in just my little field of 3 horses, the social skills of these different horses is insane. So Jasper grew up in a well-defined herd on the Welsh Mountains. He had mares, lots of different mares, different ages of yearlings. All the horses are mixed. It's not a true herd where he was, because he wasn't loose on the Welsh Mountains like a lot of them. I think he was in the Brecon Mountains, owned by someone with his own paddocks, because the reason he got sold was because he ran out of grass. So it wasn't the same dynamic as you'll get in the New Forest and stuff like that. It was private land, but still, it was still a lot of different horses, different ages, stallions, mares, whatever, foals, yearlings, the lot of them, all together, interacting with one another. And Jasper doesn't piss Fox off anywhere near as much as Marmaduke used to. To keep Marmaduke away from Fox, Fox used to have to really bite him and really kick him quite hard. She left a few marks on him, bless him, in the early days, to get him to move out of her space and not crash into her. She's 24 years old. She didn't need a 16-2 warm blood crashing into her, because he didn't understand that that was rude. And horses don't really like that. Jasper, all Fox has to do is pin her ears and he'll back off, and he'll try and push his luck and see if he can steal her food off her and stuff like that, and steal things off her. And sometimes she may have to actually threaten to bite him, but she's never actually landed a bite on him. However, when Marmaduke got into the field with Jasper, Jasper was very polite, stayed well out of Marmaduke's way. And Marmaduke was awful to Jasper. He spent his entire time chasing Jasper around because he could. This is a horse with a gap in the social dynamics where there's a horse that's in charge. If there was more horses in my herd of horses, chances are Jasper would have gone and hung out by Fox, because Fox wouldn't allow Marmaduke to come anywhere near him. He'd figure that out pretty quickly. And I think yearlings should be put in with mares with foal at foot as well. I understand there's a lot of risk with that, but chances are these yearlings are going to be put hard in their place by these brood mares that are like, do not behave like that around my foals. If you want to play like that, you go and play with the other yearlings. You go and pester the older horses. You'll get put in your place by them as well. But you are not to interact with my foal like that. And young foals may try and step out of their lane and go play with the yearlings a bit, and then it might be too much and they go running back to their mum. And there's lots that horses can learn from one another, and I get there's risks to it. Horses can break their legs, horses can get injured, foals can get injured very easily. But in my opinion, I think it's a risk worth having for a horse to be able to grow up and have a well-rounded set of social skills. You'll also see in well-rounded groups of horses, maybe the people introduce a mare and foal. The mare, again, will keep all the other horses at a distance until she feels like they can be trusted and they can behave around the foal. She'll trust certain horses to be around her foal, others she won't, and as the foal gets older, she'll let that explore more and interact with some of the yearlings maybe. Again, it's all about giving the horses really well-rounded social skills, and having adult horses mixed with yearlings and with foals and brood mares is in my opinion, only way to do that. We as people cannot replace horses in their ability to raise other horses to be well-rounded socially. I also feel like we overhandle our foals when they're young, and we should be leaving them more to the horses to deal with, because I see a lot of videos of foals at foot of them with their mums, and they start testing owners and start backing up and trying to kick them and things like that. And that's not a position that people should be in. If they're out in the fields in mixed herds, you don't need to interact with the foals too much. You don't need to do too much with them in times where they're really starting to test boundaries and things like that. That is horses' jobs to deal with that. There is nothing better than a moody old mare and a few moody old geldings and yearlings and stuff like that for young horses to learn. Don't kick each other, don't try and push each other by backing up at them. And some horses they will be able to push around like that, and then other horses they won't be able to push around like that. And then when we step in as humans to come and work with these horses, those horses, we set those boundaries as we are not ones to be pushed around like that. And those horses will understand, because they'll have met horses that won't let them push them around like that. And they'll understand how to respond in those situations. I've also seen in situations where broodmares become completely sick of their foals. They get fed up of them. They can't stand them anymore. Come 4 or 5 months old, some of them will be like getting their foal away from them. I'm fed up of being stuck with this youngster for 24 hours a day. Get it away from me. And it's not good for young horses to be that disliked by their mother at that age. They should be able to go away from the mum, give the mum a break, go and play with the other foals, or the brood mares might hang around together. The foals might go and pester some of the older horses for a little bit, and the mare can have a break from them without having to have humans step in the way. I've seen stories of people going into the field with their mare and foal. The foal lays down with the mum, and the mum looks at the human, and they're like, "You've got this, I'm going to go for a roll, and I'm going to go spend some time on my own." That is the role of other horses. We shouldn't be having to step in for horses to do that, and it doesn't happen often enough for the mare. Yeah, so letting horses do the hard work of teaching boundaries to young horses, so we don't have to, is really important. And the easiest horses I've ever worked with are the feral horses that have been raised in herds. They're so much better mannered. They've got so much more understanding. that about pressure and moving away from pressure and how to give to pressure than any of these homebred horses have. I don't think I've met a single horse that's homebred or well-raised, quote-unquote well-raised, that has not been a problem in some sense. The feral horses and the horses that have been raised in herds are fucking brilliant. They understand it all. And don't get me wrong, they've got their issues. Obviously, you've got to work on them not being scared of people. But I'd much rather deal with that problem than a problem with a horse that doesn't understand how not to stand on your toes all the time. Because to get those horses to move out of your space, you have to use a lot of pressure, and you often end up scaring the horse because they've never been taught this before, they've never been told this before, or if they have, they've not been told in a way they understand, and it creates problems. This includes the thoroughbreds, ex-racers. I think a lot more ex-racers would have longer careers, would be better off once they come to retire if they're no good as a racer, or once they've finished their career. There would be far less behavioural issues, stress issues, cribbing issues, pacing issues, if these horses just had a basic social understanding and you could just toss them out for a bit after the racing career and let them be horses in a herd with other horses. They're less likely to break their legs, they have a better ability to self-regulate their stress because they've been around older horses from a young age that have shown them how to work through these things that scare them. So that is largely the role I believe retired horses should have. And like I said, it's not about horses being ridden to the day they die. It's not about keeping them ticking over. It's giving them a job to do. The horses that are retired, that go into retirement livery and nothing really gets done with them, they might get the odd groom here and there. They look miserable, in my opinion. And the horses I've seen that have been retired and used as horses to raise other youngsters, they have loads of life in them. They live till their late 30s sometimes. There was a pony called Spice where I worked at Bulby. He died recently, and it wasn't even due to ill health. It was due to an accident that happened in the field. And he was, 34, 5, something like that. He was really old. And all these older horses I see at riding schools go on into their 30s because they've got a job to do and their purpose in life hasn't just been taken away from them. So, as much as it wasn't a talk on just old horses, that's what I kind of planned. I planned for it to be. Retired horses have other roles that they can take on. They don't have to just stay and work their entire lives until they die. I just don't think they should be either tossed out into a field to be forgotten about in a retirement home, or even if they're being brought in every day to do something. I don't think it's fair on retired horses just to have their career stripped of them and to have no purpose in life. I think the horses are designed to have a purpose throughout their lives. So I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. That's my episode on why I don't think horses should retire. If you disagree, pop a comment in. If you agree, pop a comment in. Any questions? Again, I will be doing a live Q&A and it'll be available to watch on either YouTube or Patreon, depending on where you're watching my stuff from. I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one.